an eye on it. All right, so we're in an interesting moment right now because we have a lot of clarity about where we're going. We want to build the capacity of all of ourselves as developers and continue to bring more people aboard to contribute as developers. One of my goals from the beginning of PPBL is to start expressing this concept of headless dApps in a way that I don't think is tangible to the broader public yet. And so that's one of the things I believe in very strongly. So I'm bringing that to the table. And I hope that it's starting to become clear how that idea has been expressed in the course so far. And maybe some of you here have things you would add to those outcomes. And we want to be as clear as possible about why we're here and building what we're building. But even as we seek that clarity, right now, this is a complicated moment because there's so many pathways towards the outcomes, even if we're clear what we're working towards. And so here's an example. I think we have built up a pretty clear understanding that it would be nice to be able to spin up unique instances of a given Plutus validator, right? This idea of a parameterized validator, the ability of anybody to grab open source code and create their own instance. I hope that that outcome is clear to people. And please jump in with questions if you have questions about the outcome itself. But even if you are on board with that as an outcome, there's a lot of ways to address this. Should our goal be to create just a RESTful endpoint using whatever stack, right? Maybe a combination of Plutus Nix and Docker, but exposing to the end user a simple URI that takes parameters as input and provides the CBOR and the contract address as output. Maybe the pathway is completely different, right? Maybe it's using the Plutus language that Michel from Harmonic is creating. And I just had a great check-in with him, similar to meeting with Santiago last week, and thinking about ways that we can support the ongoing exposure of a tool like Plutus, because we appreciate what it does. It takes away the need to learn Haskell and Plutus, and it allows TypeScript developers to write contracts natively. It may turn out in the 6 to 24-month time frame that's a better option, right, for allowing people to create new instances of these Plutus validators. Mesh is working on it. Maybe Demeter.run turns out to be the best option, right? If you can give somebody in a pre-configured Demeter environment a contract that you've already written, and all they have to do from their web interface is change those lines in the compiler code, is that efficient enough? Maybe. We don't know which pathway is going to win. Maybe all of these will turn out to be viable. Maybe some will be more viable than others. And there's a lot of unknown about exactly how that will go down. But why is it important? Well, if we agree on the vision for headless distributed dApps, this little piece of technology, this ability for anyone to spin up an instance of a validator is going to be essential to that. So I've been reading a book and I talked about this. Trevor, you made it to tokenomics this week, I think, right? But just in case, for anybody who wasn't there, at this week's tokenomics call, I mentioned I've been reading this book, Emergent Strategy, by a woman named Adrienne Marie Brown. And I would very, very strongly recommend this book. It is unique. And it's not focused on blockchain. I think it's important for all of us to to, remember the entire world beyond this one where we've been spending so much time. And there's a few lines that I could read to you from that book, but I just want to mention, she makes this distinction between easy and simple. And before getting to that, she defines emergence, citing another author, Nick Obolensky here, who says, emergence is the way complex systems and patterns arise out of a multiplicity of relatively simple interactions. One of the things we're trying to do at Gimbal Labs is not not write a white paper and then go out into the world and implement it, but instead to say, hey, there's a lot we don't know. What are the simple things we can do day to day that are going to give us the most access to that unknown, to the valuable surprises we might learn along the way? And then strategy, she defines, the word strategy is a military term. It means a plan of action toward a goal, a practice of narrowing down, identifying one path, one strategy, one way, one agenda, one leader, one set of values, etc. Reducing this kind of infinite solution space that all of us recognize to the one thing I'm going to do with the next hour or day of my life. And this is something that I personally want. I want to be part of a community who supports each other to focus. I believe that we are in an industry that makes it really, really hard to focus. And my happiest moments in the last 2 years have been the times that I've trusted my relationships enough to be able to focus for a full day, to not answer any Discord messages for a full day, because I know that that'll distract me from the thing I'm working on, and I can only do that when I can trust that I'm not going to lose a relationship by not responding within a few minutes. So now, taking these words, simple versus easy, simple is a measurement of how much clarity we experience or feel about what we need to be doing, right? The outcome or the interaction. I need to talk to Dagwell. I need to update the PPBL course. Those are simple things to say. Easy means something different. According to this author, she says that easy is more of a measure of how much friction we experience when we're working towards an outcome. And I really appreciate this distinction, so I just wanted to bring it to you today. Looking a little deeper, right, just for example, and these are some concepts over here on the right-hand side that are elucidated in the book and outlined in this blog post that I found. A project can be complicated, it can be complex because it has many parts, and therefore it's not simple. But I think some of you here have experienced this. Even though learning Plutus is not simple, it can feel easy if you're fired up to do it, right? Nothing's easier than doing something you want to be doing anyway. And so some of you have talked about this idea in the term ikigai. Little Fish is working towards that, and maybe it's come up in some other ways, right? Finding that sweet spot. What can I do that I want to be doing that also creates value that the world needs? And then things that, are simple might not be easy, right? Just anybody who's married knows this deeply, right? It can be simple, you and me. But great relationships are not always easy. In my opinion, they're not great if they always are, right? You have to go through tough times together. So I want you to know, as a first step to building towards tokenomics PBL, some people are opting in to book clubbing this book, okay? And anybody who wants to join us in reading it, talking about it, and seeing what it has to tell us about a pathway to tokenomics PBL, I just want to invite you to do that. And this is a Miro board. I'll share the link after these slides where you can do so. And for anybody who doesn't know, there's a role in Discord about Gimbal tokenomics. You can select that role from the Start Here channel. And if you want to join those meetings, that's every Tuesday at 1600 UTC. So going back to our example, there's already some people working on some of these pathways. As some of you know, Alex and Hinson are working on seeing if they can create a RESTful API using the Plutus, Nix, and Docker stack to expose a contract that, like I said, takes those parameters and gives us back a contract. Maybe somebody here wants to learn Plutus or PluTS. It's I can't distinguish between those two things. I know that when I'm working in TypeScript, I'm pretty fired up, and I love personally the idea of learning this. But I don't know if it's the best thing for me to prioritize. So if anybody here wants to maybe be a leader of working with Michel, becoming an in-house expert on PluTS, contributing to that code base, because, for example, this new language doesn't yet handle this outcome that we're looking for, but it's a stated goal of that project to get there. Mesh wants to provide this as well. And maybe there's other possible pathways here. My hypothesis is that we can't go wrong by side exploring many different pathways to a shared outcome and seeing what we learn all the way. And one or more of these will turn out to be a viable option. And everything we learn is going to inform the next set of decision making, right? Everything we do, even if it's a failure, is information about what we might do next. So another example of a clear outcome, I would like to see that Plutus PBL supports people to become contributors to projects. Right? This is the core goal of Plutus PBL. Some people will stick around in partnership and contribute to projects together. Others are going to get what they need from Plutus PBL and go start their own things. And both of those are perfect expressions of this outcome. Okay. So what are the pathways there? Well, we've got the first draft of the course. We can continue to revise it. We can build new modules if we recognize that something new is necessary, right? Maybe there should be a 300 level module about PluTS. Maybe in a 100 level module, we should just do a deeper dive into getting Demeter.run up and running, for example. But maybe we change the development stack entirely. I don't know. It could be that 2 years from now, Plutus PBL is entirely based on PluTS, right? Or some language that hasn't been written yet, a language that somebody here right now creates. I don't know. I think we have to be open to whatever pathway emerges and recognize, hey, the goal is this. If this course is helping people become contributors, that's the goal. Keeping old content that no longer serves that, I want to say loud and clear, you're never going to hurt my feelings. If you replace a video that I made in an earlier instance of the course with something that uses a different stack and delivers on this outcome better, that's one of the best possible things that can happen. That's the promise of decentralized systems, I think. So we got to be open to changing the development stack. And then maybe some people want to think about advanced and focused courses. You know, Plutus PBL intermediate level, Plutus PBL expert level. Of course, I just mentioned tokenomics. This first step towards TPBL is anybody who wants to read this book together and start taking those ideas and creating a curriculum. And before tokenomics PBL rolls out, Dandelion PBL is an important thing to start to build. More on that soon, but you know, all of these things, here we are. These are our goals. So finally, one of my favorite concepts from this book is a reconsideration of hierarchy. And so many of the concepts in this book have helped me just get better language for stuff that I've been thinking Gimbal Labs can do. And I've kind of been awkward about talking about my personal relationship to leadership, but I'm having a personal breakthrough. You know, I'll lead if the work is to, learn how to use Canvas and put a course together. Think about best practices in project-based learning. I've spent a career working on those things, and I'm thrilled to lead in those contexts. But the organization I want to be part of is one where everyone leads, right? Within their scope, within many hierarchies and these flexible hierarchies. And indeed, when you see visuals of what distributed or decentralized systems look like, I think we're all aware of what those pictures look like, right? To me, this is the outcome of that. And so everybody here, no answers required today, but I invite you to think out loud. I'm hoping that right now I'm modeling my own process of thinking out loud about these concepts. And if there's anything on this list where you want to be the go-to expert, the go-to leader in this community on tools in this list or things that I'm not even creative enough to name, that's the invitation I'm hoping comes through loud and clear from where we've gotten to so far in this course and where we might be going next, okay? So I just wanted to share that context first, open it up to questions, and then I can kind of go back and we can look at a couple of specifics of the GBTE and where it fits. So thanks for listening so far. What do you think? What questions do you have or insights can you share?
James, do you think that there should be any sort of, I don't know, effort or space devoted to a little bit of PR and fundraising? I kind of see the content mature, and it's such an important resource that I know you guys don't have time or space for marketing, right? But I think it's really important that people know that this is being done. I don't know if many people are aware, and this is so important to me, and this is such important work. I would hate to see it, it just struggle or not have the resources that it has. And I think we are enough that we can maybe make some sort of effort to maybe just get the word out, make sure it gets the support that it's needed. I don't know if that should be like a stated goal or just something that we do. I don't know.
So, I love this question, and I've had a love-hate relationship with questions about marketing for the last 2 years, but this book has given me some insight into thinking about that question. But the simple answer is, right, here's another place, right? Marketing, communication, right? Getting the word out. So I invite help, and we need it, okay? And it's not just about the bandwidth. It certainly is, right? Somebody has to love that work. We need somebody for whom that work of marketing feels easy, wants to do it. But it's not only that. There's a great quote in this book from just a labor organizer in the Detroit area who says, people are always asking me, how are we gonna bring more people into this project? And what I always respond is, well, what are we gonna do with them when they get here, right? And so I just love that concept. I want to always maximize the clarity here among us about what's going on first, so that you're all here because you're willing to deal with this uncertainty, right? You're willing to do this really hard, imaginative work of creating this thing from the ground up. And everybody, beyond us on the timeline of tech adoption and embracing these new models, they're going to need successively higher levels of clarity when they get here. And so I just want, yes, as we think about marketing, I want us to all be able to look at each other and say, oh, we are so clear on what we are marketing, and we know what we're going to do with people if we are successful at marketing. Because the last thing I want to happen is to, yes, go out, market, be really successful at that, and then have all these people who show up and we're like, well, actually, we're not quite ready for you yet. From the fundraising perspective, this part's important too. Roberto and I agreed early on that we're gonna protect the freedom of this organization first and foremost. We know from Web 2 the stories of what happened to Google's idealists once they were at the mercy of venture capital. And the list could go on of the organizations we talk about. We don't want to lose the access to our mission and to our hard work by taking funding from the wrong place. That means in the short term, it's painful. And it means in the long term, we have more and better options. And if we can create these systems that grow the value of a community token, that help us all get to the point of sustainability, we want to experiment with that. And at the very same time, he and I are going tomorrow to a conference, a virtual conference, and just starting to engage with people who may be able to just kind of serve those investment needs without sacrificing mission and vision. So more to come on that. And yeah, like I want this work to be sustainable more than anything for people who are here. So so yeah, that's it's uncomfortable to talk about, right? Because we're all putting in the work we're doing right now, and the rewards are not flowing yet. But you have my word that I'm here for the long term. And everybody here is going to make their own decisions about making promises to each other like that. Thanks for the kind words, boys. Nelson and Dagwell, what do you say?
Oh, I just want that was a great way of putting things. I really, filter it. I wish I could be of more service that I don't have, like if I didn't have prior commitments, but it's going to end soon, and I'm trying to jump full time on this next year maybe. I think we have talked about this before. I just wanted to let you know that I found this Cardano Cube.io. It's something similar to built on Cardano, and I was just going through it, and I didn't see Gimbal Labs in one of the projects listed there. Like it's a explorer of the projects built on like projects and DAOs that are on Cardano. So no, I submitted other projects. I just wanted to let you know that
Oh, you did? Oh, dude. Okay.
for
Thank
Gimbal
you.
Labs. And so in the description, I Roberto was asking now, like what does Gimbal Labs like, how I filled some of that form by, I typed it, but I used some of the words that I think you responded to mix on a previous meeting. And what I wrote was Cardano provides educational resources for Cardano ecosystem, and we have Plutus PBL on the running, and tokenomics and Dandelion on the building. And then we also are developing open source infrastructure for Cardano, and Dandelion is on beta production. And then we have GBTE coming up that is in development stage. So I just wanted to let you know that I put that form in. And yeah, like today's presentation, it's been like, it's really clear. And I don't know, I just wish I could be of more service now than later, but really exciting. Thanks, man.
Oh man, thank you. And Nelson, thank you for taking that initiative. And I'm sure what you said is exactly how it needs to be said. Thank you. And dude, just for anybody who doesn't know, Nelson is a senior in college right now. So man, like no apologies needed. Like, thank you. It's incredible that you're making time for this, and no hurry. You're not going to miss any opportunities here. Graduate and then we talk. This is so exciting. Dagwell, what do you say?
Man, I was listening to what you were saying about the leadership piece, and kind of getting people like championing ideas and causes. And I went to school for organizational leadership. I don't really talk about it much, and it's so interesting how many different types of leadership styles are, and how many different ways people respond to them. But I think that something important that in Gimbal Lab that I think that we can build upon is, we're not, in my opinion, I don't think that we have built, or we can build a process to squeeze more worth out of people. I'm talking about the worth that when you squeeze out, it makes more automatically. Like they're like, oh my God, I'm in the game and I want to do more. And I really think that like if we could not spend all the time, but if we could break down and show how people can use their different skills that they already have to like immediately cause change. Because I think that people are already leading causes every day. You're already leading a family. You're already raising kids. Some of you are already going to school, in your education, things of that nature. So it's like we all kind of have that, but I feel like when I got into space, I was doing this dance between like waiting for permission and really excited to show what I can do. And that like created like a weird kind of like anxiety. So I think if we can empower people to feel comfortable using their skills, and if we provide the scaffolding to show where we need these skills at. So it is a process of identifying like the marketing, things of that nature, some of like the community building, maybe funding, but I really do think, like James said, I really think we have one of the best shots to be self-sufficient because we offer a product that it builds the ecosystem. So it's like, but anyway, I really like that, the leadership and the worth of people.
And it's such an interesting way to think about the Plutus, I should say PBL in general, right? The goal of PBL is to help people become contributors, and that framework of going from onboarding to building up their background knowledge, showing them ways to specialize, and then inviting contribution. I think it can be applied to any of those areas, Dagwell, that you're naming. Right. And so as we flesh out this model, let's keep using it. And let's always remember, your words there were perfect. I'm glad we recorded it, because that feeling of self-anxiety. Oh my God, like, am I going to be invited to stick around? Am I really needed here? It's if we can be the place that talks about that. You know what I mean? Like that's not a byproduct. It's not an inconvenience or a bug in humanity that people feel that way. It's the thing itself, right? And if we could name directly, look, yeah, people are going to experience that feeling as they're onboarding. This place is crazy and stressful. But what if we made the place where people were like, oh, yo, I can learn and be at peace there. That's what I want to be part of. And I'm speaking personally here. That's what I want, right? For me personally, I just want to trust that I'm part of something long term, And so let's always come back to those deeper things. These, if for each of us, if we can commit to, hey, if I'm feeling some kind of way about what it feels like to participate here, let's talk about, well, how do I make this situation more comfortable, or how do I scale or share the parts that work? Really appreciate that, man. So now this concept, Dagwell, the other thing you just said about pushing our limits essentially. And I gotta go, I'll go back in the recording to get your words right. But you know, we all have this opportunity to push ourselves as hard as we can and want to. And one of the systemic things we have a chance to have something new to say about is for whom. When I'm pushing myself, for whom? If I want to climb a corporate ladder, I don't need to be in Web3. And there's places people can go to do that. If I want to push myself for a VC, not to pick on VCs too much, but yeah, to pick on them a little bit, right? I can go work in Web2. There's hotbeds of technology and innovation that I can move to, and I can take part in an ecosystem like that. The tokenomics model that we're starting to elucidate at Gimbal Labs is just making the assumption that we can go long on each other's development capacity. And this is not a brand new idea, right? At legacy corporations, you can get stock options that allow you to kind of have this piece of ownership in the long-term health of the organization. And what we're really trying to do is just take the best parts of that model and keep them going. And so there's not time to look too deeply at that model right here. But I'm going to open this up for just a moment. I think I've had a chance to share this with some of you, and I'm really excited about it. It's just that I have too many tabs open in Miro. Sarah, yes, good. Yeah, keep book recommendations coming. Where is this? Here it is. Okay. Oops. I want to do a more comprehensive share of some of the work that's going on with tokenomics. But maybe the best way to do that, if people can make it on Tuesdays at 1600 UTC, like I said, you're welcome there. If for any reason that time doesn't work for you, I'd be happy to catch up with anybody else here. But I just want to zoom in. I'm just going to take you to like the original idea in whiteboard form. Right, we know I was working on bounties for the GBTE, and it's obvious in retrospect, but I was like, yo, I can't write good bounties if I'm not working on the GBTE already. Okay. And so the best way to create new bounties is by doing work and figuring out in a hands-on way what needs to be done. And this generalizes software development, but also to catalyst facilitation, to marketing work, to other sorts of facilitation, right? We can show that contribution is the most effective way to making good decisions. We can show that people who contribute can be good governors. I think that there's a lot of problems in the world that happen when we separate decision making and doing. There's disconnects there. And so we can create better connection points. We have a framework that takes people through the onboarding, BBK, and specialized parts on Canvas. And then we have this, I'm trying to move to GPTE for contribution stage. And there's feedback loops that can form, right? Because anybody, if they have the resources and work to be done, can spin up a GBTE instance. But when we take on projects at a group level, and that's why I think it was really interesting to start today's meeting with Nasser the way we did, he's bringing to the table a project that maybe we can decide to take on. If it feels exciting enough to enough of us here to work on something like this, and if the rewards are great enough to actually start building up capital at this organization with the work that we've been doing. So just the numbers, the specific numbers don't matter here. So don't be distracted by these. Just think about the system. There's some treasury that we would share that holds ADA and gimbals in it. And what happens when this distributed organization takes on work is, suppose some organization, whether it's a startup or whatever, has a certain amount of ADA to invest in development work. That would go into this treasury, but not into the main pool, into a subset. And some number of gimbals could come out. So just to keep the numbers simple, imagine that this amount is 100,000 ADA for 2 million gimbals. That would create an implied conversion rate from gimbals to ADA, okay? And this conversion rate, this is the critical part, would only apply to those gimbals. These 2 million gimbals for this project are worth this conversion rate. Everything else, there's a different rate. We'll get to that in a second, okay? And this ADA, contributors may claim all of it. A project gets scoped out, we write tasks, we deploy that to a GPTE instance. The startup can set the requirements for getting access or contributor tokens, or we can help them. We could say, look, well, here's the devs that we are here. Here's a record of our reputation. If you want to set specific rules, we can talk about that moving forward, right? This is an eventually sort of thing. We don't have those lists of defined strategies yet, but we can develop them together. Contributors earn gimbals from that pool of 2 million. And when the project is complete, contributors can simply exchange the gimbals they earned back to ADA at this rate. And maybe all of this ADA goes directly to contributors. But maybe some contributors decide not to exchange all of their gimbals. Maybe they say, you know what, I'm going to keep some of the gimbals, and I'm going to let that ADA go back into the full treasury. Now, there's a certain amount of gimbals outstanding. It's currently just over 50 million. And so a treasury might have some amount of ADA and some amount of gimbals in it. And this ADA backs all of the gimbals that are not in the treasury. So just to put numbers on this, let's just say there's a nice round 50 million gimbals in circulation, and 15 million of them are here in a treasury. That means there's 35 million gimbals outstanding. And to get the value of those, the baseline value of those gimbals, you would just look at the amount of ADA in the treasury and divide it by those 35 million gimbals in circulation. What this means is that, anytime people holding gimbals redeem, that value is not changed, right? This would be this alpha divided by big G minus little g. That would give us this VC rate, the value of the circulating gimbals that are out there. And so when a project happens, everybody redeems for this project rate right here because they need the ADA right now. Or, that for whatever reason, all right, fine. Then VC has not changed. But if people decide to keep the gimbals and put ADA back into this treasury at a rate that's higher than VC, right? This implied rate right here would need to be higher than VC for this to work. But when we make that decision, now every time contributors choose to hold gimbals, ADA in the treasury increases, and that baseline value of gimbals starts to increase over time. That's the core dynamic, and we're starting to develop a system based on this. We don't want to jump into it, all at once. I think there's a lot of work to do in making sure that it holds up to different scenarios. And I've been doing that work. I've been thinking through a lot of different possibilities, but at every turn, I've been pretty happy with the outcome. It does hold together in my research so far. And so I just wanted to introduce this to anybody who hasn't seen these concepts yet. so you can start thinking about the work ahead to bring a model like this to life, and to recognize that, back to Dagwell's point, this is why I wanted to share this. For whom am I working overtime? For whom am I grinding right now? The other people who are grinding too. Why am I choosing to grind this hard? Because I feel like I'm not alone doing it. Right? I'm looking around me, and I believe in the capacity of this group. And so when the question then that people often ask in tokenomics, why does somebody want to hold gimbals? Why do I want to hold gimbals? Because it represents my belief in the future of what we could do together. If that belief is ever shaken, I can always just redeem my gimbals at this rate VC. Okay, I can pull myself out of this system anytime. But if I stay in it, I have the direct ability to be investing my time as a tiny venture capitalist. So just it's exciting to kind of get to share some of these things. And I want you to know, once again, not rushing into this as the policy, but I want to put it forth as something that we can think about together, build it out together. And I hope that this is kind of an expression of what we're trying to do at Gimbal Labs. And there's some fun contracts to build, right? For example, right? This holding contract for a project. Ooh, that's a good way to say it, Dagwell. Treasury as confidence metric. Yeah, that's cool. Questions about that?
Yeah, James, it's funny. I have cause. We want to do this. Like we have everything on that board that we need, and we have a willing community. Like, we already have multi-sigs that got some money, and this, like, we wanted to do this like yesterday. So, I'm really happy that I think we'll have we'll have a sandbox pretty soon. I know we've been talking a little bit, but I'm really interested in this and just getting this an instance of GTD outside of the community, and then that way we can parallel ping it, and it's going to be amazing. I'm really excited, and I really think this concept that you have right here. I just, I know we're not talking too deep into it, but it spins off into so many. It lends itself well into so many different things, and if you go back and you think about what Nasser was talking about earlier, and if you have like Gimbal, you could start taking projects just to weaponize Gimbal. And I'm not saying weaponize, but like, okay, let's take this with the understanding that we're not going to spend any of these tokens. We're just doing it to strengthen the bottom. And that's really cool to have that built in.
Established, right? It's not weaponizing, it's establishing, right? And as soon as there's a baseline value, then the work can continue from there. And yeah, I'm not fully sold on Nasser's project, but I'm willing to hear what he has to say. I'm willing to look at his plan, and maybe it would give us one place to begin to test this model. Certainly, Disco gives another venue to test some of these ideas. And then, of course, this is more or less being implemented in the initial instance of GBTE, right? We all get a chance to just contribute to building out that infrastructure together. And people are going to get to choose what to do once they're holding some gimbals. Totally, right? Okay, and so consulting, right? So what's an example of a project? It's not just a dev project. It may be PBL courses as a product. It may be simply helping somebody spin up their GPT instance. Of course, it can be client facing. Maybe it's just running live coding sessions for other communities, running playground sessions for other communities. I think there's a lot of examples of value here. And that's why, going back to what I really wanted to say today, everybody here, we always have the responsibility to ourselves, of course, but I really do feel like we have the responsibility to each other to think about what work feels easy to us, right? The more each of us is doing what feels easy, then the clearer it's going to be. Okay, well, here's the capacity we have based on what feels good and what feels easy. And here's how we got to go out and ask for help on these other things that maybe we don't fully have that capacity yet. I really appreciate the airtime to share these ideas today. Thank you all for it. Like I said, I'm curious to hear what we hear next from Nasser, okay? But if anybody here is feeling strongly one way or another, like, no, that would be a distraction from the core work of Gimbal Labs, or yeah, I've got this many hours per week that I would be excited to contribute to a project like that, just let me know. Because what we're certainly not going to do is say yes to a project that we just don't have the interest and the capacity to contribute to. But on the other hand, I can see that it is possibly a good fit. And so I want to, again, see what he's got for us and take it from there.
Do we have a couple of minutes more? Because I wanted to hear how or why the GPT, right? Like a little bit more. I'm sorry I missed out on the discussion for that. But
Nelson, say that one more time. Why? What?
the renaming of GBT.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I've heard from a bunch of people over the last couple months that the word bounty just doesn't have a great connotation in a lot of places across the globe. And I've never been comfortable with it. And so it kind of felt like, why keep using that word if it has that kind of connotation when it's an easy thing to change? And then at a more industry level, I think it is interesting for us to distinguish this system from bounty systems as they currently exist. My biggest problem with Web 2 bounty platforms is that they're based on competition, right? You put out a bounty and everybody out there races to be the first one to deliver on it. And whoever gets the right solution first wins the bounty. I want us to upend that. I want somebody to say, yes, I'm going to do that. And for us to take their contribution seriously, or their commitment to that contribution seriously, and say, yeah, as long as you do this in this amount of time, that is yours. You can be confident that your commitment is sufficient. And if you deliver on it, you get the reward. So I think it's exciting for us to be shifting that understanding while also honoring direct feedback I've gotten from several people that the word bounty just doesn't feel right to them.
So what about the talks that are inside? Like, are we still like it's bounty cards or?
Yeah, well, so I just turned the music up really loud and raced through the front end project this morning just to change the word bounty to project. It didn't take that long. And that leads now to the question, what is a project? And so the word project is replacing bounty on the one level, but here's one more slide I had that I think is worth taking a quick look at. This may not be the right answer, but just to think about it for a second, I redefined the type project in the front end for now as either or. It's either this type right here, the second one is exactly how a bounty was defined before. Now it's simply called a project, and the project line has been removed right here. And a project can either be a project or an array of projects with a name to signify it. I don't think this is a final answer, but I wanted to see what this looks like. And I was taking a little tip from the way Mesh handles data and even the way Plutus handles data, right? What's the type for data? Well, it could be an int, a string, a map, or it can be a map of data or a list of data, right? So I want to play with this. I want to see how it feels, and I want to see how it feels just from a more conceptual perspective, to say that the core data type here is project. Whether you are redesigning a project card in the front end, that's a little tiny project, or designing an entire DApp, that's a project that consists of many projects. I want to see if we can get away with that without making it feel too unwieldy and unclear for people. But if we just look at, a project as the nested thing. I'm also open to any other language. Okay, that's why I'm not going to rush and change the Plutus code yet. But it felt good just to remove the word bounty from the front end that most people are going to see when they first interact with this thing. When we feel confident about language, go back and make the changes to Plutus. That's fine. And if anybody has a good name for this, it can certainly use more of a legit name.
So that's coming before I fill the description for that Cardano Cube.io, but sure.
Oh, yeah, I mean, thanks.
Maybe we can change that. One thing I noticed while filling that form was a standard for the amount of tokens for the gimbal. So I checked on a couple of explorers, and some were showing up with a dot and then 6 more decimals of 0. Some explorers didn't show any of the decimal places, and some put a comma before. And I saw a metadata where you, I think, use like specifically assign decimals at 6 places. Anything on that standard, like I'm not aware of what standard that is. Why is it different in the different explorers?
It's really interesting, isn't it? Okay, so this decimal places on Cardano tokens are very similar in spirit to, the NFT standard. It's just a convention that people are agreeing to use. But it comes with the precedent of Lovelace's to ADA. As you all know, when you're coding or when you're writing a transaction with CLI or writing Plutus code, ADA is not a thing. It's Lovelace's only, right? And then we know that in the user-facing end, ADA has 6 decimal places. So the native asset solution to this thing, and I'm pretty sure it didn't exist. I think I remember, you might remember too. I feel like the Liquid team was the first to say, hey, native assets need to be able to have decimals too, but I might be remembering that wrong. But the solution is simply to register the token in an off-chain database that is deployed elsewhere. And so in Dandelion, for example, one of the microservices, what's it called, that Dandelion deploys is actually the Cardano token registry. Okay, and that registry, among maybe a couple other data points, I have to look at it to remember exactly what they are, but one of I think the critical bit of data in that token registry is the decimal points for a token. And if any app is not representing those decimal points correctly, it's because it's not making correct use of the token registry. Yeah, thanks, Dagwell. Yeah, and if you go to this link that Dagwell just shared, you'll see that there's a description of the process to register your token. Off-chain token metadata, yeah. You need access to a server that exposes this, which is crazy. I mean, this, I encourage people to think about how frail the NFT standard might feel. And there's nothing on chain that insists that that standard must be. It's simply the agreement of a critical mass of people to use that standard, right? And to build wallets and websites that consume metadata from this particular key in this particular format. That's it. There's nothing inherent that says, hey, this token is attached to this image, right? And this is the same thing. This is, we simply have an off-chain database that any wallet or dApp that is using these decimal points is going to reference. When we write Plutus code with gimbals, we have to do the same thing as with Ada and Lovelace and just add 6 zeros to the end.
The process is kind of clunky too, in my opinion.
Oh man, wait, you want me, the way I add myself to this is just a simple pull request on GitHub? You kidding me? I don't have to make a transaction or anything. Who's going to approve that?
So, and then like update the signatures, make sure the sequence number is right. And I'm just like, so really it's just one sequence number? That's how you're telling the difference? I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it feels, it's just, hey, don't look behind the curtain, okay? The wizard's doing his work.
So some of the explorers out there are not in terms with this standard, right? Like that's what I found out today. So that is correct, right?
That's right. If you see an explorer where there are those extra zeros, it's because they're not using this registry correctly. And even when I use NAMI and Eternal, which I trust both of them, but I still double check. I'm like, all right, is this, if I'm sending gimbals, I'm always going to double check, does it have the decimal point or not? What's actually being sent here?
But is there any use case for those decimals, like partial use of a token? Like, is it something possible?
Right. Well, you could argue, and there's plenty of fungible tokens that didn't bother with the decimal point thing, right? It allows you to just, one is the lowest amount that I could send of this thing. And there's no such thing as sending a half of a token. Roberto and I went back and forth about this when we were deciding how to just initialize the gimbals, and decided to go with the same pattern as Lovelace, just because it felt right to be able to send 1.5 gimbals. And if you're going to do any decimal points, why not keep those options open for the future by having the same amount as Ada? Dagwell, do you want to say more about that point?
We've really been playing with like UTXO values. And if you have decimals, you can and especially when you're doing like change factoring, and you have like, let's say you have something that like, it's going to cost 0.35 to mint every time. It's really good to know that you could say, okay, if this UTX weighs 10.75, then do this action, mint these 2 NFTs, and then you could say, so you can assign value to the tokenomics. And if you have like 6 fields to play with, that means like you could do this for one that weighs 10.1 ADA, or that is worth, and then 10.2. So it really gives you more handles to kind of play with the tokenomics and not blow up the price, from what I've been kind of toying with.
In other words, nobody here has any idea what they're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, we went on feeling to decide that the gimbal should have decimal points at all. I don't know if our feeling was right, but it's what we did. And I could have easily been probably convinced the other way. Yeah, Nelson, this is why PBL, right? Because there's so many details like this. It's hard to remember even to bring them up. And so it's so gratifying to get together and talk about this stuff. That's funny. Yeah, I got another meeting coming up in 10 minutes. So I think this feels like a great place to end. Y'all, thanks again for the space to share these ideas. And I'm looking forward to continuing to cultivate everybody here who wants to lead. So if you ever have something that you want to present on during one of these calls, please don't hesitate to ask, or just show up ready to go and grab the mic at the start of the meeting. Still got to figure out that problem that we ran head on into yesterday. I have no idea what's going on there. I don't know if it's a bug with Nami or what. But if anybody has any insight on that, I'll be excited to hear between now and next live coding what the heck is going on with the faucet.
Which faucet?
The PPBL faucet project.
Okay. So it has
It,
nothing to do with the network restarts that we had recently on the test networks.
no, I don't think so. Yeah, so the Cardano testnet faucets have been reconfigured. If you go to the one that says pre-prod now, you'll get the right stuff. But we just did a little token gated faucet project just to introduce the concept of an end-to-end DApp in the PPBL course. And it was working, but not for everybody from day one. And yesterday we just ran into a problem, and it appears to me that having one access token is for some reason not sufficient to fulfill the UTXO requirements. But I noted in Discord yesterday after our meeting, I set myself a second access token and everything worked fine over and over again. And Nelson, you started the meeting by saying, I can do this once, but not again. And when I had 2 access tokens, I was able to unlock from all 3 faucets, just waiting for the transactions to go through in between, no page refreshes, nothing. I was able to unlock, no problem. But when there was just one in my Nami wallet, none of those worked. And even the simple send on the transaction page didn't work. And so I don't know, I think I need a weekend to think about that problem. I have no idea what's going on there.
I haven't shared something weird that was happening yesterday. Like, I am trying to figure it out. But when I tried to recreate that partial burn problem, I just couldn't get it. And without the extra code that I put later on, it was working. Partial burn was working. And I tried to fetch from the repo, the previous iteration, previous tag, before I committed to that one. It worked. I don't know what the hell is going on, but I don't know. Just trying to figure it out.
Well, and this is, you know what, honestly, I think that waiting is a very appropriate strategy right now, right? Not trying to like sweep this problem under the rug, but like it might be just the fact that Nami is still in development, right? It might be just some early thing there. It may be a bug in mesh. You know, there's so many things it could be. Of course, it could be a bug in our front end code, but that was working before. So yeah, the inconsistency of the problem is the most confusing part to me. And so personally, I'm probably not going to look at it again until Monday or so. But yeah, Nelson, thanks for trying to figure that out. That makes it even more of a mystery that minting, that burning has gone from not working to working and back again, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm so confused right now. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah. +1, Justin. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so, and that's the thing, right? The moment it gets hard to distinguish, hey, is this my fault as a dev, or is it a problem with the tooling? And I'm really not sure. Waiting for a day or two is always a reasonable approach. Rock and roll, y'all. I will post this recording probably first thing tomorrow morning, because it has to process, and I've got some other spots I got to get to. But be in touch. And if I don't see you, have a great weekend. Cheers, y'all. See you soon.